2 weeks later, Richard found a torn corner of paper in Walter's wastebasket during a visit. Letterhead from a law firm neither of us recognized. The words, "Estate Amendment, Confidential," printed at the top, and a date just 4 days after that mysterious lawyer's visit. It wasn't proof of anything specific yet, but it confirmed our worst fear. Something was actively being changed, quietly, while Walter's mind and body were failing him. Walter passed away on a Tuesday morning in March, with Diane at his bedside and, according to the private nurse Richard had quietly built a relationship with, myself and Richard both turned away at the door that final week, told he was too weak for visitors. I never got to say goodbye to the man who raised me. That is a wound that will never fully close. The will reading came 2 weeks later. I sat in that lawyer's office in a black dress, hands folded in my lap, watching the attorney's uncomfortable expression as he read through pages that left me, Walter's only grandchild, with absolutely nothing. No money, no keepsakes, nothing from a lifetime of Sunday phone calls and birthday cards. The entire estate, all $2 million, structured as a trust for the care and comfort of Biscuit, Walter's golden retriever, with Diane named as the dog's legal trustee and, conveniently, the sole administrator of every dollar in that trust for the rest of the dog's natural life. And that final line, cold and deliberate, "Let her explain this to herself." I sat, frozen, humiliated, gutted. But Richard, sitting beside me, wasn't frozen at all. His jaw was tight, his eyes sharp with something I hadn't seen in him before, controlled fury. "That's not Walter's handwriting on that final line," he said quietly to me in the hallway afterward. "I've seen his handwriting for 71 years. That's not him." Richard hired a forensic document examiner within the week, using the torn letterhead corner he'd saved months earlier as a starting point to track down the mystery law firm. What they found was devastating and clarifying all at once. The amended will had been drafted and signed just 11 days before Walter's death, during a documented period when his oncologist's own notes described him as experiencing significant confusion, likely related to medication and disease progression. The unfamiliar attorney who drafted it, it turned out, had his license under active review for 2 prior incidents involving elderly clients and last-minute estate changes. And the final handwritten line, "Let her explain this to herself," matched Diane's handwriting almost exactly, according to the examiner's report, not Walter's at all. Richard filed a formal will contest on my behalf, citing undue influence and diminished capacity, backed by the oncologist's medical notes, the forensic handwriting analysis, and testimony from the private nurse who confirmed Diane had isolated Walter from family during his final months and controlled all communication and paperwork during that period. The case went to probate court 4 months later. Diane fought it, hiring her own attorneys, insisting Walter had been lucid and simply wanted his final gift to go to the one being who never disappointed him. A thinly veiled jab clearly aimed at me. But the evidence was overwhelming. The medical records didn't lie. The handwriting didn't lie. And the nurse, once free from Diane's control, testified in detail about being instructed to turn away Walter's own granddaughter during his final, most vulnerable weeks. The judge ruled decisively in my favor, invalidating the amended will entirely and reinstating Walter's original estate plan from 4 years earlier. the one drafted with our real family attorney, back before Diane had ever isolated him from the people who actually loved him. That original will left the bulk of the estate to me, with a modest, appropriate provision for Diane and, yes, for Biscuit's care as well, just far more reasonably structured. Diane was additionally investigated for elder financial exploitation, facing potential criminal charges that ultimately resulted in a settlement requiring her to repay legal costs and forfeit any remaining claim to the estate. I used part of my inheritance to establish a small scholarship fund in Walter's name at the local community college for students raising themselves through hardship the way I once was, with his help. I kept Biscuit, too. He lives with me now, sleeping at the foot of my bed most nights, the last living piece of my grandfather's love that nobody could take away or twist into something ugly. Richard and I are closer now than ever, bonded by a fight neither of us wanted, but both of us were glad to have fought together. Sometimes I still hear Walter's voice in my head, gruff and warm, the way he used to answer the phone every single Sunday. There's my girl. I like to think, wherever he is, he knows the truth finally got told. Grandfather changed his will on his deathbed, leaving me zero and the dog everything. I sat in a lawyer's office and listened to him read my grandfather's entire $2 million estate, all of it, left to a golden retriever named Biscuit. I got nothing. Not a photo, not a keepsake, not a single dollar. Just my grandfather's final message, typed in bold at the bottom of the will. Let her explain this to herself. If you enjoy stories like this, hit subscribe, because that cruel little sentence turned out to be the key to everything. My name is Sarah. I'm 32 now, but this story starts with my grandfather, Walter, the man who raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 6 years old. Walter was a retired shipping executive, gruff on the outside, but endlessly warm underneath it. The kind of man who'd sneak me extra dessert and then pretend he hadn't. My uncle Richard, Walter's younger brother, lived 2 towns over and became the other steady presence in my childhood, showing up for every school play, every birthday, never once making me feel like an orphan instead of just a kid. Walter built a shipping logistics company from nothing over 40 years, and by the time I was in college, it had made him genuinely wealthy, worth just over $2 million by his early 70s. When I was 26, Walter remarried. Her name was Diane, a woman 15 years younger than him, polished and attentive, always perfectly put together in tailored blazers and pearl earrings. She was warm to Walter in public, doting even, holding his arm at every family gathering, laughing at his old stories like she'd never heard them before. My Uncle Richard was skeptical from the very first dinner. Sarah, watch how she talks about the business. She asks a lot of questions about what things are worth, he said quietly one night after Diane left early from a family barbecue. I told him he was being paranoid, that Walter deserved happiness after years alone. I wish I'd listened harder. The first 2 years of that marriage looked good from the outside. Walter seemed happier, lighter, taken care of in his early 70s in a way I appreciated, even if Diane and I never grew particularly close. Walter still called me every Sunday, still remembered my birthday with the same handwritten card he'd given me every year since I was 7. Then, slowly, things began to shift. Diane started attending Walter's doctor appointments alone, citing his confusion and stress as reasons I shouldn't come along anymore. She began screening his calls, telling me he was resting whenever I tried to visit, even when I knew, from his own text to me, that he was awake and asking why I hadn't come by. Walter's world, piece by piece, began shrinking down to just Diane. The first major incident happened when Walter turned 74. I showed up unannounced for his birthday, only to be turned away at the door by Diane, who told me, coldly, that Walter needed quiet, no excitement, doctor's orders. Through the window, I could see him sitting in his armchair, very much awake, very much not resting. I stood on that porch in the cold, holding a birthday card I never got to give him, humiliated and confused. 2 days later, Diane called me, warm as ever. "I'm so sorry about the other day, sweetheart. I was just overwhelmed caring for him. Come by this weekend, I'll make it up to you." I believed her. I wanted so badly to believe her, because the alternative was too painful to consider. That calm lasted about 6 weeks, then a month. Then, within a year, the excuses for keeping me away came almost weekly, each one slightly colder than the last, each apology afterward shorter and more hollow. The ticking clock arrived last November, when Walter was diagnosed with advanced pancreatic cancer, given roughly 6 months to live. Diane took over every aspect of his care immediately, moving him into round-the-clock private care at the house, restricting visitors to immediate household only, a category that, conveniently, no longer included me, his own granddaughter, the person who'd called him every single Sunday for 26 years. Uncle Richard, thankfully, was harder to shut out. As Walter's own brother, he had a standing his fragile health couldn't easily dismiss, and he pushed his way into visits regardless of Diane's objections, sitting with Walter for hours, watching, listening, noticing things I no longer could. 3 months before Walter passed, Richard called me, his voice tight with concern. "Sarah, something's wrong. Diane had a lawyer here yesterday, not our family attorney, someone I've never seen before. Walter seemed foggy afterward, more than usual. I think they had him sign something." My stomach dropped. I asked Richard to try to get any information he could without alarming Diane.